Hello friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man in the Moon. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, if you are a returning visitor, you certainly know that this is my series in which I use tarot and oracle cards to help me explore topics related to living the intentional life. And before we get into this week's spread, I'd like to check in with you for just a moment. Do you know that a tarot spread can tell a story? It can. For example, let's think of one of the most classic tarot spreads used over the last century called the Celtic Cross. Yeah, the Celtic Cross spread tells a story. It tells us who the subject is, has happened in the past, where they're going to in the future, things that they're considering right now, what they're worried about, what their hopes and fears are. It tells a story about the significator's life, whether that significator is a person or an aspect of the person's life. Spreads tell stories, especially if we allow them to. But not only can one spread tell us one story, but a series of spreads can give us a continued story, like a TV series, if you will. And that's what I've noticed over the last few weeks. For the last few weeks, and those last few weeks, I think, span into the last lunar cycle. You know that I switch out my decks every new moon, right? And so this series of stories, this series of a story, began in the last lunar cycle. That's where at least for me, the clearest beginning was. And that beginning was with the sense that we would become aware of obstacles, and obstacles that we are most certainly putting in our own way by our limited beliefs, by our fears, by our misunderstandings of who we are and what we can do in the world, or what other people will allow us to do. And then the next week, we got the advice, you might say, to shelter in place. Don't venture too far from home. Stay where you are. Take advantage of the help that's there. Forage close to home. Those kinds of things. And then the week after, we were told to stay where we are, we're given some ideas of what we might do when we are there. And the main message was meditate. Yeah, last week's spread told us we would benefit from meditating, and that message was really clear and really strong. And this week's spread continues that series in a very interesting way. So, I hope you're ready for that. Now, just in case you are new here, the spread we're about to see is my version of not a Celtic Cross, a Tree of Life spread. And I developed it for myself without necessarily outside influences, but I'm not going to say that I'm the first one to think of it. I have no idea. I thought of it for myself, but I'm sure other people have thought of it also. It's my Tree of Life spread, but it's also probably almost exactly the same as somebody else's Tree of Life spread out there. I just haven't seen it yet. So I'm reading and have been reading my Tree of Life spread for the last 2 lunar cycles and this lunar cycle. And in case you don't know what the heck that means, I've done a separate video of that spread, giving you an explanation of it and a sample reading of the spread using just one deck. So if you want to find out what you're about to see, I'll put a card up here so that you can hop over, take a look at the video that explains the spread, and then come back and have more of a grounding of preparation for what we're about to read together, right? And so now what I'm going to do is I will show you the spread. Now this is a 2-part video. You know that. You saw it in the title of the description, in the title for this video in the description box. It said, and I don't know what the title of this one is going to be yet. I'll figure out the title as I read the spread, but it said something, 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 part 1. So this is part 1. And in part 1, what I do is after showing you the full spread, we break it down into the first 2 triangles. the supernal triangle and the ethical triangle, downward pointing, the ethical triangle, or the emotional triangle, the emotive triangle. And then we'll stop this video. In part 2, we will pick up with the third triangle, the second downward pointing triangle, which is the etheric triangle or the psychological triangle. We'll read that, and then we'll go back and look at the whole spread and read the spread in 3 different ways: the mother pillar, the father pillar, and then the lightning path down. So we read this spread from various aspects, and not all of the aspects actually. I could continue reading this spread in a couple of different ways, but we're just going to go that far because that's plenty. So friends, right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the spread. Here we go. That was the full spread. What do you think? The cards are gorgeous, yes? So, friends, if you're curious about the creators of these decks and the names of the decks, there will be a short video at the end of this video that gives you that information. The names of the decks, the names of the creators. Also, in the description box below, there will be links for you to go and check out 3 of these 4 decks. One of these 4 decks is way out of print. I'm very sorry to say that. But the other 3 decks are in print and easily available and affordable, if you ask me. So I'll have links to in the description box below, so you can hop over, look at the decks, perhaps purchase one or all of them if you like. I highly recommend them, especially the deck that we're going to see in the first triangle. That is the deck that got me into this kind of reading. So you'll see that information at the end of this video. And right now, we're going to take a look at the supernal triangle. Here it is. So that was the supernal triangle, and the deck that we're focusing in on in this triangle is a gorgeous deck by the brilliant Christine Payne-Towler. And I'm eternally grateful for her, for all of the help that she's given me, for being a mentor in my growth as a tarot reader. And so, you saw in these 3 spots. In Kether, the top spot, we had the Ace of Swords. And then in Hokmah, the second spot, we had the Emperor, reversed. And then in the spot for Binah, the third spot, we had the Nine of Wands, upright. Now, if you know me, you know my use of this deck, you'll know that I read this deck with reversals. So every time I shuffle it, I split it in half, turn half of it around, riffle shuffle, and continue the process. So I'm riffle shuffling in reversals and reversals of reversals and reversals of reversals of reversals, etc. So we have 1 reversal, not a lot. This is a fairly active looking portion of this Tree of Life spread. And in Kether, again, let's go back to the top. We'll start at the beginning. In Kether, which is the crown of the Tree of Life, right? This is where the primal stirrings of the Tree of Life begins. This is the material, they're not even concepts yet. The energy that is still imperceptible resides. This is the entry point into the movement into manifestation of the Ein Sof, of the infinite oneness. Here enters into the process of moving into manifestation. But right here at the top, at the crown, we have, it's so imperceptible, especially to us having these human experiences, that we can't even know that there is anything there. However, there are primal stirrings. There's an arousal of desire to manifest. It's not the manifestation. It's not the desire to manifest. It's the arousal of desire to manifest. This is where the potential for content exists. And I like to imagine it as the body beginning to move before you notice why it's moving. Now, in a moment, you're going to notice, the body is moving. And then you're going to ask, why is the body moving? And then you'll notice, there's something there. It's an itch. And then you'll scratch it. Have you ever experienced that? You'll notice some kind of twitch and you'll wonder what is that movement? And then you'll notice, that's an itch, and then you scratch it. It's that moment before you notice the body moving. That's kether. And in that spot of the potential for content and the arousal for desire, for the arousal of the desire to manifest, we have the Ace of Swords. And this is a gorgeous card. I have a spread based on this card alone. And I've used it several times in the past. It's a beautiful card. And you'll notice that there is a sword in the center, as per usual, piercing one eye. And in front of that sword, there is a kind of dragon-like beast. And that dragon-like beast has his head turned back, or her head turned back, or their head turned back. And he, she, they are biting his, her, their tail. Kind of like an Ouroboros, forming an Ouroboros here. And we also notice that there are three lights with eyes on the left, and two lights with eyes on the left, two lights with eyes on the right, and at the top of both of them there are both the sun and the moon. So those are the 7 planets. And the way I imagine these planets, we have the sun and the moon being a pair. And then we might have Mercury and Venus, then we might have Mars and Venus, and then we might have Mercury and Jupiter. And then for me, the center one would be Saturn. And the sword is piercing Saturn. And Saturn is the mate of both the sun and the moon in the way that I associate the 7 classical planets or the 7 classical lights in astrology. So, we also have the 2-headed bird there in the center, right? Wonderful, wonderful imagery, wonderful symbols. And the Ace of Swords, if you'll notice down here, points to Libra, the Libra decadent of Libra, and its subruler, Venus, from which the cardinal aspect of cardinal air's vital attributes enter our world, enter our natal charts, enter the question that we ask of the spread as we lay it out. And the question I ask every week for this series is, how can we live more intentionally in the coming week? And the content that we're not aware of, but is potential here, is the Ace of Swords. That's how we can potentially live more intentionally in the coming week. Now, I mentioned that the subruler Venus is here. Now, we've got supersized Libra in this card. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of a heads up. Watch for the bouncing Libra and watch for the bouncing Venus throughout this spread. Those two are going to be they're key, they're repeated, and they're important, powerful signs and planets for this spread, particularly. But right now we're focusing on the Ace of Swords. In this deck, what does it tell us? It tells us that a balanced brain can transcend the binary learning that we have acquired from our inculturation and our schooling. Yeah, our gendered thought patterns, our socioeconomically formed thought patterns. Yeah, this is the way that rich people are and the way rich people think. This is the way that poor people are and the way that poor people think. This is the way that male figures are and male people think. This is the way that female people are and female people think. Those binary structures that we have used to help us make sense of the world around us as human manifesting brains, those are helpful, but they aren't the entire story. The entire story transcends those binaries, right? And so this Ace of Swords allows us to remember that when our brains are imbalanced, when our hemispheres are imbalanced, when the conscious mind and unconscious mind are in balance, we can transcend those binaries and have a more holistic way of approaching thought and communication. Yeah? But in addition to that holistic way of thinking and apprehending, who, where, when, why, and how we are. We also have the seed here indicated, yeah? The single, unitary idea, the grain of thought that expresses the inner essence of things. Because there's a oneness of all that exists, and then there's the oneness of the seed, which has not yet been planted, and yet contains everything it needs for the beautiful full flowering of whatever plant it is. So that seed, that unity of seed is also indicated here. That one idea, merging dichotomous thought and communication, is indicated here as well. Now, we may have preferences to form divine and celestial, what am I trying to say? Okay, I went off into the woods there for a second. Sorry. Yeah. There may be preferences for us to form the celestial blade of clarity. That celestial blade that will slice through what we commonly would refer to as the bullshit around us, the fog around us, the misinformation, the confusion, the cacophony, the noise around us. The celestial blade can cut through that, can pierce it for us to see clearly. Because that's also a sword's thing, right? It's thought, it's speech, it's also vision. So for our clearer thought, we might want to form that divine blade that will slice through the noisy crowd, the madding crowd. Yeah? So we may want to more intentionally, frame our thoughts and communications in that holistic, unified, non-binary, non-dual way that is our potential. And that is the potential that is ready to form for us. And that's a potential that would naturally form very well from a meditation practice. And if you remember last week, that was the main drive of the spread. That was the entry point for last week's spread, was the meditation. Now in this week's spread, we begin with this unified mind, unified thoughts, seeds of new ideas, cutting through the bullshit that can come from a strong meditation practice. Whatever that meditation practice might be. So this seems just so more than appropriate as the next step in a series of spreads that we've been reading. So here's where we begin in Kether, and we move into the emperor, right? The emperor is in Chokmah, and well, let me tell you what Chokmah is. Just a second. Chokmah, this is wisdom. Now, it's the top of the father pillar. It's the Sephirah of wisdom, and this is where we have the boundless impulse of creation. Remember, just above we had the arousal of desire to manifest. Here we have the actual impulse of creation, and we can notice it. We can't see what it is yet, but we can notice it. It's like an intuitive insight of the soul, still unable to be grasped, but noticeable. Like the beginnings of a fog. You can notice that there's something different about the air out here, but we can't exactly say that, oh, it's because it's foggy. Now, you just notice something there. And there are no boundaries, there's no formation, no form. There's definitely nothing for us to grab onto, but we can notice something there. That's Bina. And that's that's Chokmah. And that is also where our wisdom is noticed, is appreciated. And again, there we got the Emperor. And this is a beautiful card. This is one of my favorites in the deck. And let me show this guy to you upright, because look at that body and look at that hair. Just gorgeous. right? We got the hair flowing up into the sky like, maybe like Jupiter, right? Which is interesting because, well, let's get to it right now. Because the emperor does point to Jupiter, which is housed in both Taurus and Pisces, from which these mutable fire and water's vital attributes enter our world. So yeah, this is Jupiter, the king of the Olympian gods. You know that the Olympian gods were not the first gods, right? The Olympians were we might even say the last iteration of the pantheon. And they came from the Titans, who came from the old gods. And so Jupiter is a fairly young god when you think of the entire lineage of gods, especially in the Greek-Roman tradition. And yet he's for us, modern humans, an older god, an old god, right? But still, in the Greek pantheon and in the Roman pantheon, Jupiter or Zeus are fairly young new to the game of eternity. And the emperor is the fourth card, and so the emperor is associated with the Hebrew letter Daleth, and Daleth means door, or even low or lowly in humility, which is interesting for something called the emperor, right? Low in humility? Really? Poor in spirit. Yeah, you know that song, blessed are they who are poor in spirit, theirs is the kingdom of God, right? Yeah? Low in spirit, humble in spirit, poor in spirit. That's what Daleth indicates, as well as door. Also, we have the rune, the Futhark rune of Ansus. Ansus is the rune of order, of breath, not the breath of life, perhaps even, but breath, inspiration, spirit coming in. Yeah, spiritus that's another form of breath, right? Spirit is also breath, bringing in the Spirit of God, inspiration. Also, communication is possible, yeah? Breath is the way we communicate. Our sound is formed by breath moving through vocal cords. So Ansus, order, breath, inspiration, communication, those are kind of more emperor-like qualities, perhaps. So what does this card mean? It's just a gorgeous card. We see the regal eagle, on top of the sphere that is both morning and night, yeah, day and night, with the sun and the moon. It's beautiful art. Reversed, what do we get? We get the idea of perhaps the unrepentant narcissist. Yeah? Correction is unacceptable to him. He takes more than is freely given to him. This is an emperor who is all about themselves rather than serving the kingdom, which could be that poor in spirit emperor who is there to be the protector, the servant of his, her, or their people. Reversed, we don't get that. We get the opposite of that. It could also be overdoing things. Now, this emperor in reverse could be overdoing things like talking too much. Yeah? Overreaching, trying to get too much for ourselves. Overeating, trying to numb the wounds that we felt from the past by indulging ourselves in things like food or alcohol. Or spending, shopping therapy, right? Overspending could be part of this as well. We want to be careful of all of those things, of overkill, of overdoing it when this card appears in reverse. Now, Jupiter. Jupiter is abundance, right? Abundance and wealth and good luck. But here in the restrained sense, Jupiter is trying to break free, and so it's trying to overcompensate by overdoing things, perhaps. Now, this card in reverse, and this is quoted directly from the guidebook by the wonderful Christine Payne-Towler, you are doing it right when you still have time for play, for love, for sleep, for hobbies, and for simply doing nothing. If you have time for all that, you're avoiding the pitfalls of this card in reverse. So remember, with the beginning of this, well, a couple of weeks ago, we got the idea to shelter in place. Don't go too far away. Now, that's echoed a little bit here in our spot for wisdom. However, when I said echoing, we're going to get an even stronger echo in just a moment. Right now, in fact, when we move into Binah. In Binah, Binah is the Sephirah of understanding. Yeah, we move from the crown, from the mind, the Ein Sof, into wisdom, divine wisdom. And from wisdom flows our understanding. And in our place of understanding, what do we get? Our understanding is the top of the mother pillar. Now, top of the mother pillar, our understanding, Binah, receives the energy from Chokmah. And that energy, and this is going to start becoming a little sound, I hope this doesn't sound too sexual to you, but still, it receives that energy, and that energy moves into the divine womb. And in that divine womb, what happens? That energy now has a shape that it did not have before. It was boundless in Chokmah. Here, that energy enters a container of the womb, and now there is shape to it. But it's not static shape. It's not like you pour water into a piece of Tupperware and it just sits there. This energy is vibrant and it's vibrating and it's bouncing off the uterine walls. And as it bounces off the walls, it does a couple of things. It ramps up the energy. It also does another thing. It splits, it diversifies. Kind of like a cell that has been turned into not an embryo yet, a fertilized cell. Splits and splits and splits, and still it's like this amorphous thing, right? There's not anything particular there. It's just a clump of cells. But then something miraculous happens. Those cells start to make an agreement, and some cells say, I'm going to be a brain, and some cells say, I'm going to be a bone, and some cells say, I'm going to be skin, and then they start to diversify, right? That's what's happening here as well. It's energized and diversification begins. Yeah, we have the idea that we have infinite understanding or contemplation possible. Intuitive understanding and contemplation are possible here in the divine womb of Binah. Yeah, we had the intuitive insight of the soul that, there's something there in Chokmah. Here, the balance of Chokmah and Binah, we have the ability to intuitively now understand and conceive and contemplate what it is that we received from our wisdom in our understanding. And what we're getting in our understanding is yet again the Nine of Wands, this time upright again. It's been here upright, reverse, and then upright again today. And the Nine of Wands, you can see at the bottom. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mention Jupiter. When I mentioned Venus and Libra, I didn't mention Jupiter. Yeah, what do we have here? We have the Nine of Wands, which points to Sagittarius. The Sagittarius decade of Sagittarius, yeah? Supersized Sagittarius is here. And its subruler, Jupiter, from which the mutable aspect of mutable fire's vital attributes enter our world. Yeah, mutable fire is ramped up here in Binah, just as the energy of Chokmah is ramped up for us here. And as that energy is ramped up, we've got a volcano in the process of exploding here, right? A little big eruption is in the background. But in the foreground, we have a hill with a cave. And in that cave, there are two creatures. There's a wolf and a goat. Not normal friends, but yet they are sheltering together in place. And we see the Nine Wands up in front. Beautiful card. So what does this card, and beautiful plants, of course, I didn't mention the plants. Plants are beautiful. What is this card telling us? Saturn, the Sagittarius decade of Sagittarius. We want to move forward, right? We want to follow our passions, to be the forerunners, the front runners. And yet here, Jupiter's double whammy influence brings larger than life energies into our our lives, into our natal charts, into the question that we're asking, into Binah. We may want to take shelter from right now, though. That energy might be a little bit too much for us. Now, we may not want to venture out. We may want to find a place not to hide, but just to be safe, even if we're with somebody who is not naturally our partner. We may be in that safe space with somebody who could be a potential enemy, but now, because of circumstances, we get along. We have to get along to move forward, to stay safe. Even though we may feel jinxed by the power of the energy that's moving around us. So, right now our focus is on surviving the upheaval of all of this fire energy that is pushing us forward. A shift in consciousness is on the way. A shift of consciousness that is probably going to be experienced eventually as this Ace of Swords is coming our way. So have you ever noticed that when some big thing is about to happen or is happening, we ask for a timeout with wait a second. Right? So we can think of it as that as well. The benefit of taking a time out for this moment to process itself and restore our vital forces from all of this power that is banging up around us and against us. So, if you found a spot of safety, if we can find a spot of safety, it would be wise for us to take advantage of it. That's what this card is reminding us here. So, in this supernal triangle, we begin with that idea of bringing our mind into balance, the seeds of thought, having new ideas. And yet, we want to be careful because we've been sheltering in place, we've been in meditation, and we might be starting to feel a little bit bound, right? Jupiter may be starting to feel bound up, and Jupiter bound up may start moving us in the direction of reactivity instead of reaction and action and appreciation of what is happening and appropriate response. Instead of that, reactivity of Jupiter and overdoing things. I am first, I am important, I'm the one. Those kinds of patterns, unhealthy patterns, are possible here in this card. So we want to be careful of that. Because we do still want to stay here and take a break. Take the time out that we are going to benefit from. Even if we are with somebody who we don't exactly think is our best friend, still, if we found this safe space together, we're in it together. And we need time to recover. Apparently still, we need time to recover. We want time to recover. And that's what's up here at the top in the supernal triangle. So now, friends, we're going to move on into the first downward pointing triangle, the, what did I call it? The ethical triangle or the emotive triangle. Here it is. That was the ethical triangle or the emotive triangle. And just in case you don't know and you were asking yourself, well, what about that fourth card in that last triangle? There was one card, an oracle card, that he didn't talk about. No, I didn't talk about it. That is the spot for Dot or the void. And we're going to read that when we read the lightning path down in part 2 of this video. So for now, we're going to skip over that Sephira, which frankly, some people argue that it doesn't exist, that it's fantasy, that, I mean, it's an imagined Sephira, that spot is supposed to be blank. I filled it. Some people say that, yes, there is an abyss of a previously occupied Sephira, and so we can call that blank spot something called a dot. And we'll talk about that again in part 2 of this video. Here we are again, now we're back into the ethical triangle or the emotive triangle. And here, let me see, I didn't get the cards out. Just a second, here are the cards. In those spaces, starting in the upper right, on the mother pillar, on the father pillar, in Chesed, we had the charioteer of dead, which is also, in other words, the Knight of Wands. And then in Gevurah, we had the Queen of Ankh, which is the Queen of Swords in that deck. And then down in the center, in Tiferet, we had the 5 of Ankh, yeah? 2 swords, yeah, the 5 of Swords. So in this triangle, we had 2 swords. Remember, the very top was the Ace of Swords, 2 swords, and then 1 wand. We had the 9 of Wands just above that. Now we moved from the 9 of Wands in one deck, and we're going directly into the Knight of Wands, Charioteer of Dead, in another deck. Interesting. I think this is all very interesting. And this Sephirah, I said, was Chesed. What is Chesed? This is the loving kindness Sephirah. This is the Sephirah of mercy, of divine mercy. And it's on the pillar of mercy, the father pillar, the pillar of mercy. And yeah, this is where we have our eager and ardent desires manifesting. Not the thing, but the desire is manifest here. And it could be a desire to or a desire from. Yeah, the desire to do something or the desire to remove ourselves from something, to push something away. Yeah, the desire for or the desire against something. This is also where cosmic laws come into being. Cosmic laws like peace, fairness, and order start to come here. They're not anything that we can really get our hands on, but there are things that we can conceive of, beginning to conceive of things rationally. Now, it's interesting that I said get our hands on, because when we think of the pair of Chesed and Gevurah, we can think of those as the hands, the paired hands of the tree of life. These are the Sephirah that begin shaping things into form. And the first step with the right hand of Chesed, we begin forming the cosmic laws of peace, fairness, order, love, joy, well-being are coming into form here with the right hand of Chesed. And in that spot, we had the charioteer of dead, the Knight of Wands. And the Knight of Wands points to Leo. My sun sign, by the way, points to Leo, which is the domicile of the sun, from which fixed fire's vital attributes enter our world. And we have this wonderful, very simple image of a charioteer with a bow and arrow. The horse is moving forward with a leap. It's just this powerful, energetic card, right? Whoa, and I just threw the cards away. Just a second. I got myself too excited there for a second. Yes, here is the card again. Yeah, the Charioteer of Dead. So, interestingly, from the guidebook, we have the idea of thoughts of business coming from this card. Also, playfulness, creativity, generosity, very leonine things, right? Rules through strength. Leo rules through strength, and perhaps that's one reason that some systems pair Leo with the strength card. Not only that there's a picture of a lion on the card, but there's also that the rulership through strength. Leos act from emotion more than intellect. Yeah, they follow their inspiration more than their thoughts and their ideas. Yeah, they're drawn by their passions. And their thoughts, when they have them, are large and majestic. Yeah, we are courageous, Leos. We're trusting and kind as well because we're courageous. We're not afraid of trusting people or being kind to people. We're not afraid of what's going to happen to us if we allow ourselves to be kind and thoughtful and generous to people. And yet we can be domineering. I've moved into the we because I am, again, Leo's sun. We can be domineering. So it would help us if we would express our organizational traits with kindness. Because sometimes when we get into organizational mode, like the coming Virgo is right after Leo, right? When we get into our organizational mode, we can start getting a little bit cold and domineering, a little bit like the negative side of Virgo. So if we can do that and maintain our kindness and our playfulness, we would benefit from that. And that is what this card is reminding us in our loving kindness portion of this spread. To be playful, to be creative. As we're sheltering in place, as we're opening ourselves to the possibility of this united mind and the seed of new thought and new ways of perceiving and new ways of seeing, and clearing a way to see clearly. When we move through this flow of energy, we move into our heart, not the heart chakra, not the heart of the spread, but we move into our love and our kindness with playfulness and creativity and generosity. And courage and strength as well. Yeah? Loving kindness without courage and strength is weak and ineffectual. So this card, having that cœur de lion, that heart of a lion here in loving kindness, is just wonderful. Don't you think? And that moves us right into the Queen of Swords. Now, if you saw last week's video, you will know that I'm reading this deck. The guidebook for this deck is generally not something that I think is helpful. If for no other reason than when it gets to the small cards, the pips, the cards from ace to 10 in the suits, it says, just look at the number, and if it's even, it's good. If it's negative, if it's odd, it's bad. That's it. That's not the way I read tarot. So, because of that, I'm reading this deck like I read the deck that will be in the lower triangle in part 2. However, that deck switches out the swords and the discs, the coin suits. It switches air and earth. But for this, because there's no reason to do that in this deck, I'm keeping the swords as swords and the coins as the swords as air and the coins as earth in this deck. And I made that decision the first time I picked this deck up and looked at the guidebook and realized what I was going to do. So this is the Queen of Ankh, which is the Queen of Swords, and we're going to read her as the Queen of Air. And she is in Gevra. What is the Sephira of Gevra? Sephira pairs with Chesed. It is the left hand that forms the energy moving into manifestation. And this is the Sephira of judgment and limitation. And a lot of us think of, judgment, that's nasty. Oh, limitation, I don't want that. However, loving kindness without any shape, without any borders, without any container, without any judgment, becomes so effusive and not effusive. Effusive can be good, but becomes so vacuous. There's no focus to it there. Yeah? Gevra gives us focus with judgment and limitation. We need limitation to focus on things. We want to focus our loving kindness on people, on situations, on groups. Whatever we want to focus our loving kindness. Without that focus, it's wonderful, but is it effectual? So, there's a positive side to judgment and limitation. This begins to put motion to the ideas we gave birth to in Chesed. It gives motion to our truth, to love, to goodness, to peace and fairness, to joy. And it acts in concert with Chesed to form reality. And what is going to act in concert with Leo to form our reality? We have the Queen of Swords. Beautiful card here. Yeah? Oh, I'm sorry. Here she is, the Queen of Ankh, the Queen of Swords. We've got this wonderful card here, this beautiful image. Two hands up towards the populace, if you ask me, not to the sky, not to the earth, but up to her people. Open hands facing towards her people, perhaps in benediction. And the Queen of Ankh points to Libra. Remember Libra, which is the domicile of Venus. Remember Venus, from which the cardinal air's vital attributes enter our world. That cardinal air enters into our world, into our natal charts, into the question we ask of the tarot through this card. And from the guidebook for this deck, it says that the Queen of Ankh, Swords, is an indication of deep love of justice, which is wonderful. Doesn't like to hurt the feelings of others. Very Libran thing, right? It has a sensitive nature. So we've got that powerful force of Leo in Hesed. So in this side, in our focus, in our judgment, we're asked to soften a little bit, to be sensitive to ourselves and to others. We want to make sure that we don't hurt the feelings of others as we radiate our Leonine energy. We crave companionship here. Leos often want to be on top and the first, but here we crave companionship. Here we're able to intermingle with our people. We're courteous, we're kind, and want to be understood. Leos assume they are understood. Here we want that understanding. And we want to be careful of that, because that need for understanding can sometimes stab us in the back, stab us in the knee or somewhere, can make things difficult for us. But yes, we want to be understood. We want to be understood. We give the impression of grace and charm and dignity, which is a wonderful pairing with Libra, right? Creativity, playfulness, generosity, and grace, charm, and dignity, all in one. Now, where Leo can become domineering, Libra can be indecisive, right? They're not great at making decisions. Leos love flattery. Libras can sometimes be easily flattered. And they hear that flattery and they'll start to melt. Leos hear the flattery and they say, yeah, of course, that's great. That's what you should think. Libras will, oh, you like me, right? So they're not entirely confident, which is, so Leo on the Hesed side of the tree will balance this out. Libras can also be dabblers. Yeah? They're interested in too many things, so finding a way to focus their attention is beneficial. Yeah? We have creative talents here as well, but those interests, again, are so diverse that diversity can cause us to lose focus, the focus that we want here in Gevra. So we want to learn focus. We want to learn to limit our activities so that we give the attention to the things we're really the most interested in, and then we can bring that playfulness and that creativity of Leo, that strength and that fiery passion in to do those things. As we're also being kind to others, we're making sure we're not hurting other people's feelings, that we have a balanced relationship with those around us. And we're graceful and elegant and dignified. All wonderful things. Things that Leos assume that they are, but sometimes are not. Right? So this is our Gevra, and these two move into the heart of the tree of life, Tiphereth. And Tiphereth, this is the Sephirah of beauty and glory, but it's also the heart chakra. This is the Sephirah that is linked to every other Sephirah of the tree of life. There's a path from Tiferet to each and every one of the Sephirah, in the Tree of Life. All of the Sephiroth are connected to Tiferet. Here is where creation flows forth. Now, all of that energy from all of those Sephirah join here together and flow forth down into manifestation or back up to unification with the divine Ein Sof. This is the place where we translate force into form and form back into force. This door rotates both ways. The flow from Malkut back up to Kether and the flow from Kether down into Malkut all both move through the Sephirah of Tiferet. Does that make sense? And in that spot, we have the Five of Wands. The Five of Swords. Ankh, the Five of Swords. The Five of Swords is what? The Five of Swords points to the Gemini decanate of Aquarius and its subruler Mercury, from which the mutable aspect of fixed air's vital attributes enter our world. Now, we've got the Gemini decanate of Aquarius, which would be the second decanate of Aquarius, right? And in here we have inspiration. We have rewards from writing, from teaching or lecturing, from communicating. We get the benefits from doing those things. Our ideas attract resources, attract remuneration, whether that's wealth, money, or attention, or some other kind of beneficial resource is attracted to us by our expressing our ideas and our philosophy to others. Also, we get the idea of help from our neighbors and friends here. The study that we do is going to benefit us in the future. And our original ideas are going to benefit us right now. Those original ideas, remember that Ace of Swords up there, that is going to benefit us. It's going to increase our wealth, like Jupiter, increasing in wealth. Although we don't have Jupiter here, we have Mercury, Jupiter's partner, here. But yeah, we've got that here. We've got that idea of things expanding, of growing wealth, of growing resources, of expansion of resources because of the communication, because of our expressing our ideas and our philosophies, of teaching, of writing, whatever. Whatever our jam is for communicating, it will benefit us here. And that's a wonderful place, joining both Hesed and Gevra, the Leo and Libra aspects of the tree for this reading. Join here to do that, to be the heart which receives wealth and benefit and growth of Jupiter. But we're also cautioned to spend wisely in this card. Overindulgence strains our budget. Remember, the overindulgence we were talking about with the emperor up at top, right? That overindulgence is we're reminded of here. Like, okay, yes, all of this is good. And be careful, don't go overboard. Remember, we had that up there in our wisdom Sephirah with Kether Hokmah, in Hokmah. Right? So, be careful, but we're good, but be careful. But we're good. You join that Libra and Leo together, and we're going to be good, but be careful. Don't overdo it, right? Because Leos can overdo it. And Libras, because they're not great decision makers, if they go into their dark side, they'll say, I don't know, okay, let's spend the money. Or spend the resource, or whatever it is. Spend our time. That makes sense, right? So that is this triangle. That is the ethical triangle, or the emotive triangle. So right now, what are we going to do? We're going to stop the video. And in case you want, I will put another card up here for you to hop over and jump right into part 2 of this video. Also, in just a second, there will be a short clip, a short video, giving you the information about the decks. Remember, also there are links below. Remember that as well. And hit the thumbs up button. It would truly benefit the channel if you do that. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and hit the alarm bell so you get notifications of when I upload videos. And also comment below. I would love to hear from you. What do you think? Does this make sense so far? Are you as excited about this spread as I am? I'd love to hear from you. Let me know. And friends, we're moving into part 2, but I'm going to wish you now, as always, love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.